I would be remiss if I didn't talk about SOCMA for a minute. Very happy they're here, but SOCMA is a little more than just a bunch of nice people, and a little bit more than just cool people to hang out with. Notwithstanding the fact that I'm on SOCMA's board, right? I'm not paid, so this is not a paid speech. I happen to like SOCMA. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why are we here and why do we do this. And the first is, SOCMA is a very highly levered team. What do I mean by that? SOCMA does a lot of things that our company and your company cannot justify holding at your own corporate or plant level, right? SOCMA is involved. We develop tools, chem stewards. What do corporate EHS groups develop and implement tools? When you have a small corporate group, what doesn't get done? Developing and implementing tools. But when we as an industry come together and partner for the non-compete type things that help us all get better, that's where we can justify, you put a couple $1,000s into SOCMA, but you have the entire resources of SOCMA coming back to you. And so the tools, everything from operators manuals, or training manuals, right? Chem alliance, chem stewards, all those kinds of things come out of SOCMA for dramatically less than the cost of even one staff person, let alone a department or a floor of people who do these kinds of things. The other reason that I think SOCMA is really important is, and I know you're all aware of this, SOCMA is your way to influence regulations during the development process. If you don't do it through SOCMA, if you don't do it through trade associations, if you want to go out on your own and say, my company is going to influence these regulations, you are not allowed to do it until after it is published in the Federal Register as a draft. And you get to send in your comments, just like all the rest of the general public, to be read by the EPA in a decade or so and acted upon. It is only through the trade association that you can approach the EPA or OSHA or any other regulatory body we're dealing with while it's still in the draft stage and before the draft is published. And that kind of network and something like the fly-in is incredible for an organization our size to be able to pull off a professional activity like that is absolutely incredible. And if you haven't participated in the fly-in, I recommend you do for a couple of reasons. One is they pull it all together for you. They doesn't give you your talking points. You can stand up here like me and sound like it's pro because they gave you everything you need to know. Read it a couple hours before you get over there. No problem. But it's an opportunity to interact in something many of us don't often do, hanging out in Washington, in, out, little short attacks, always fun. We've had members, if I'm not mistaken, take a kid, because look at how you can just teach a kid. It can go along with you and see how government works. It's really important. Why is that important? I got one slide, and then we can get on to the rest of the meeting. So bear with me for one more, because I really like this slide. And I really don't like it at the same time. I've said 1,000 times, and everybody who knows me has heard this, we are in the toughest decade that our industry has ever seen. And I can prove it. The proof is right there. And further, I can tell you we're 2 years into it now. I was a visionary. I said it 2 years ago, too. So, hey, I was a visionary. But we're 2 years into it, and I can prove it. Here's what I like about the slide. Look at that. There are 40% more. There were 40% more regulations at the end of 2009 than there were at the end of 2008. There were 70% more regulations in the world at the end of 2009 than there was at the end of 2007. We are in an absolute regulatory explosion. We are at over 4,000. Good Lord thought we needed 2 pages, 10 rules. Our world thinks we need, I don't know, fill this room and 4,000 regulations to tell us what we have to do. How do you track that and how do you deal with it unless you're leveraging other groups like SOCMA to keep out in front of it? Here's what I don't like about this slide. I'm an engineer by training. And when I see, if all we did was track regulations, that's an overhead service. You can buy a subscription for it. And NASA could train monkeys to follow those regulations. All right? We wouldn't need any regulations if we ran all of our factories with best practices. These regulations bring regulations to countries where they were not before. Non-compliance brings business penalties. Do we have to follow these regulations? Do we have to understand what they mean? Absolutely. That's a cover charge. That's the cost of doing business. All right? I wish we didn't have to have any of them if we just ran our factories the way we should. However, why do I think SOCMA is important? SOCMA helps us with the assessment of those. And why are you important? It is every single member in here. When we come together in these kinds of meetings and talk to SOCMA, we don't just track them. We say, what does that mean to our business? Is it significant or is it not? And if it's significant, then should SOCMA focus on that? Yes or no? And if so, what kind of tools can SOCMA help us develop so that we can deal with them? So, a tremendous slide that tells us the world is crazy out there. My point is twofold. If you remember nothing else from this slide, remember, please get your input in, because what this organization does is help us assess the impact. And to the extent you can, without violating agreements, share your best practices. Good for one, good for everybody. Capture benefits across a bunch of organizations at the same time. That is the end of my speech. Thank you.